from the MCPLive.tv studios, located in downtown Conroe, it's the Conroe Art League, live.
Hello, and welcome to Cal Live, the show that brings you what you need to know about the Conroe Art League. We are here to introduce you one by one to the Cal members so that you can learn more about them and about the beautiful art that they create. My name is Marilyn Lowry, and I'm delighted to be your host today. I'm also a longtime member of the Conroe Art League, and my guest today is Cal artist Beau Crump. Welcome, Beau. I can't wait to learn more about you and the beautiful art that you create.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Thanks. Well, let me just ask you a few questions about how things started out for you in art, Beau. Where are you from? Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Louisiana, okay. Haynesville, Louisiana.
Okay, all right, very good. And did you start out as a child being interested in art? Or?
Unfortunately, in my little small town, there was little opportunity to learn art, so it was much later in life before I actually began getting an interest in learning how to do art.
Okay, all right. Tell me about your family. You grew up in Louisiana, you say, and you went to school there?
I grew up in a large family. I had 5 brothers and sisters, three sisters and 2 brothers, and we grew up with a typical American family at that time.
Right, big family.
Big family. Yeah.
Really. So did any of your other family members become interested in art? Do you have any artists in your family?
Yes, I have a sister, Joy, who also does art, and Joy Bradford is her name. And she has been instrumental in helping me along through the years as well. And so much credit goes to her and encouragement she's given me.
That's wonderful. Well, now, how did you find your way to Houston and to Conroe?
Well, when retirement ages came about and I retired, my wife and I decided to move close to our children and grandchildren so that we could watch them grow up. And so
that's always nice.
We came here in 2008 and have lived here ever since.
Grandchildren are fun.
They've been a blast. I've watched volleyball games and all that, all the things that has to do with school, and it's been really great to see.
And children, I think, are lucky to grow up around grandparents. Not everybody has been around grandparents, but they're very special, I think. And so I'm glad you were able to do that.
Yeah, it's been really nice. It's really nice, yeah.
So tell me about you're married, and how did you and your wife meet?
Well, my wife and I met at college at Northwestern State University, and on our first encounter, it wasn't too pleasant. But we were in a cafeteria, and I had received a phone call from a person named Janet Johnson, inquiring about homework. And so, unfortunately, I didn't know there was 3 Janet Johnsons on our campus. And so I see this young woman walk across, a very beautiful woman, and I decided to ask her if someone had told me her name was Janet Johnson. So I went up to her, and she says, "I don't call boys." And so, so I turned around embarrassed and walked off. And but later we were in our French class together.
Okay.
And I began smiling at her one day in French class, and our French instructor, Mr. Wortliers, got on to our case, and he happened to see us smiling at each other, and so Mr. Wortliers looks at my wife and I, and at that time, just a friend.
Right.
And he says, "Madame Janson et Monsieur Crump, avec l'amour." And I said, we were totally embarrassed. But anyway, that's the beginning of where we are now 50 years married. So
That's
just
great.
recently, we're 50 years.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And after you guys met, well, I think you told me something about you were in the Navy for a while.
After following college, I went into naval air training, and unfortunately, my hearing wasn't good enough to be a pilot, so that didn't last for too long. And so we moved back to Shreveport, Louisiana, and from Shreveport, we took a trip on our anniversary and went to New Orleans. And on our trip to New Orleans, we went to a museum for my first time, an art museum.
Right.
And I stood and was astounded at the wonderful pieces of art that we were looking at, and said, I've got to learn how to do that. That's just something that just fascinates me. And so I came back home, and a friend who I work with says, hey, I know how to paint. I can get you started. So she took me aside, and we went, and I painted an old barn, typical thing. And that was how I got started, and then it began many long years of just playing with art. I enjoyed painting, and it was something I did as a pastime.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That is really cool. And it's interesting that just going to the museum sparked your interest that much, so that it led to quite a future.
There was one particular painting that I saw in the museum that really fascinated me.
Okay.
It was this elderly woman with a black cap on, and she had a netting over her face. And I was fascinated the artist could paint her face in this fine netting that was over her face, or a kind of veil.
A veil.
And I thought, now that would be something to accomplish there. And so,
Really?
as the years passed by, I kept that in mind, and I think, do I ever get there? Quite. That was a goal I had. So.
Well, you've certainly done well. I'll tell you, your work is fabulous, and I love looking at it. I always, when I see your work, Beau, I always feel that there's a story behind it.
Oftentimes there is.
A story, or, and I feel a mood about your work too. You really capture that well.
There is a mood, and there is usually an atmosphere of some kind.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So your study that you did, have you since then studied under anyone else?
Yes,
or?
I've had numerous artists, including my sister and other acclaimed artists who've been at it for years. And usually it was when I was painting at home and totally frustrated because I just wasn't getting what I wanted, that I began to realize I need some help with this. So I would go to an artist and take training for a period of time, and once I had achieved what I was looking for, then there was no reason for me to further think. But it's just there's a lot to oil painting that is more than what you can see with your eye.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's so much technique. There's so much about color. There's just
values, color, composition. It can be quite complicated to try to achieve something of value.
It really can, and I think it's very wise that when you get to a certain point, you realize you need help with that. I certainly understand that part too.
Yeah.
And the knowledge that you've gained since you've been in this area, I think you told me you studied under a couple of local artists.
Yes. In recent years, within the last 6 or 7 years, I've studied under 3 or 4 different artists here. One in particular was Martha Barr. Martha helped me tremendously with my color and with values, and it's been instrumental in helping me to improve my work even more. And then Juan Cantavella was instrumental in helping me with the drawing aspect of portraits, which has always been a mystery to me. And then having studied under him for a while, then it gave me a new something to paint.
Something that you could add to your work.
Everything has to be a challenge and a inspiration of some kind for me to want to paint it. So,
that's good.
Yeah. I won't just paint anything that people come to me with, and I say, no, that's not of interest in me. But so it has to be something that really inspires me.
I think that's fabulous. I really do. And it's good that you know that about yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because
my wife will point to me hundreds of photographs. No. She doesn't know what I'm looking for, and I don't know what I'm looking for.
sometimes you don't know what you're looking for till you find it, right?
No, I don't.
Well, your work is really great. And I've noticed, too, that, and I think you were telling me that lately is when you decided to add the figures into your work.
Yes,
too.
it's always, for a lot of artists I've learned, it's always been sort of a scary thing to do, is to paint a human figure or face in a painting. And so I began putting, I could say stick figures, and things years ago, but it was never something until recent times that I've really attempted a human face that was that had any likeness to it.
You did well, too. It looks great.
To the person.
Really, really good. So I understand that you're a member of the Sons of the Republic of Texas, is that right?
Yes. I am. One of my ancestors was in Texas before 1846.
Wow.
And so I qualified as a member of the Son of the Republic of Texas.
Okay.
And so I am a member of the local organization, Chapter 58 of the SRT. And there is where I have an interest. I've learned to have an interest in Texas history,
Right.
and of course, especially the battles that preceded the Texas becoming independent from Mexico. And so I began painting through the last several years, a few paintings a year, one or two a year, of Texas history. And
great.
one of the paintings that we're going to show today was one that I made, and it is the painting I have is one I created, and it's called Crossing the Buffalo.
Well, we'll check that out in a little while.
Yeah, Crossing the Buffalo Bayou is the title, and it concerns Sam Houston and his men are on the north side of the Buffalo Bayou, and as they're about to engage the Mexican army, and they in order to engage the Mexican army, they had to cross over the Buffalo Bayou. Of course, Santa Anna and his men did not know that they had crossed over. But the way they did this was they tore down Isaac Batterson's house.
Wow.
And made a raft
Wow.
to float their equipment across. And so that's where this painting came from.
That's a fascinating story, too. And the fact that you created this painting from your thoughts. I'm impressed.
Those are not easy to just
No.
completely paint in your mind.
Absolutely.
And with colors and values and
Right.
and shapes and forms. It's not easy to develop those completely from
No, it isn't.
scratch. I usually work from a photograph. And,
right.
But unfortunately, I couldn't have any photographs. Just incidents. So
Doggone it. They just didn't have any of those flying
I
around.
just make it up.
But that's what makes it so cool, too, I think. I really do.
So anyway, anything that has to do with Texas history, I'm interested in. And so that's why I create these paintings. And I have done several that are hanging in local banks that are for
Right.
people who appreciate that the battles and the things that went on to.
So is your work hanging in some of the banks now?
Yes, I have 3 pieces hanging in the Montgomery Bank, Spirit of Texas.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And so they, the owner of the Spirit of Texas has bought a few of my pieces that he hangs in.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a following. And it sounds like they're very impressed with your work. That's absolutely great. So you also have an interest in French history, I know too. And that comes from maybe your background and living in Louisiana. And
grew up in Louisiana, and in Louisiana, instead of Spanish, French has always been the language that people were taught to learn, and so I studied French in high school for a couple of years, and then in college for a couple of years, and then, but the culture, the architecture, and things like that have always been of interest, and since that time we've made 3 or 4 trips to France.
Wow.
And that particular thing, and so it's really been. French has always had a big influence on my wife and myself as we we actually met in the French class.
That's right.
Or one of our first meetings, I should say.
That's a good story. It's a good one. Yeah. So I think that's neat that you were able to travel to. It gives you a lot of background, and you've also been to Canada and Quebec, the French part of Canada, and that's going to be showing up in something else that we're going to look at in a little while.
One of my paintings that I have is Christmas in Quebec.
Right.
And in this painting I worked from was done by a friend in a commission piece for an individual, and the thing about Quebec is that it has a lot of French history, and the French language is dominant there.
Right.
And so it's of interest to me and my wife, and so we've made 2 or 3 trips to Quebec, and so
it's a beautiful city.
Usually there's some kind of connection when I go to paint something. There's some kind of connection I've had with that kind of work or that particular piece.
I can tell that too. That's awesome. Well, speaking of your painting, have you work in oil? Have you done any work in any other mediums? Or
I have toyed with watercolor from time to time, but it's not something I've ever shown publicly.
Well, you have.
Some people say that it looks great, but I haven't shown it. In fact, I think I confessed to you the other day that a lot of people know that I call myself the closet painter because I painted at home and didn't show my work publicly until we moved here in Conroe, and one of my first showings was in the Conroe Art League.
Wow! Yeah. That's brave to put your work out there.
I am indebted to the Conroe Art League for breaking me out of my closet.
Your closet painting.
It was something I enjoyed doing. I painted because I enjoyed painting, and but it was never something I felt like I needed to share. And I think I told you that. On the first night that I put my paintings up, that one of the well-trained artists came to me and says, "Can I critique your pieces for you?" And I said, "No, thank you." I was total a ball of nerves by that time, and so I said, "No way."
I love it.
So, but later. I took lessons under this fine artist, and Martha Barr.
Right.
and she has been instrumental in helping me along.
Great. Did you ever talk about that again with Martha?
I don't know if I ever confessed to Martha what he did to me that night.
Oh, that's great. Well, it takes bravery to put your work out
It does.
there.
It does take
really
a lot of nerve when you put your work out there.
Sure.
You're putting a part of yourself.
Right. That is exactly right. And so you don't paint in the closet anymore.
Well, no.
You have a studio?
I have shown many times over the last several years, and we've had shows, and we've had lots of things that gave me confidence that other people might be interested in what I'm doing. So.
Well, yes, and you've been such a big involved person in the Conroe Art League as well. You've been a part of it since when?
I think probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Right. Something like that.
Roughly speaking.
That's great.
It's been a great place to hang my art, and I'm totally indebted to many of the Conroe Art League members for their encouragement along the way.
They're just such a great bunch of people. I can't say enough about that art league. I've been a part of a number of them, but they're top notch. They really are. The people there. So you also have a membership in the Oil Painters of America, I understand?
Yes, a couple of years ago, I applied for membership in Oil Painters of America, and they required that I send them, some photographs of my work, and so you have to be juried in to be accepted into that organization, and so it was an honor for me just to be considered. But I am a member of Oil Painters of America, and we have usually once a year a group of us get together who are mainly in that organization and put on a show.
You're local?
Yeah, here locally through the Inter Art League. We usually have one show a year demonstrating. The kind of art I do is realism.
Right.
And in a world of abstract, which it seems these days is a popular thing, it's almost like a dying breed of us that are still doing realism. But to me, it's very important, and I enjoy doing it, and to try to accomplish it. And unfortunately, the thing about realism is that even the average Joe can judge whether he likes that painting or not. So he doesn't have to have a knowledge of abstract.
But yet, there is a real talent there. And when the average person can look at that and say, well, that looks real. That looks like that pasture I saw, when we were driving or whatever. Yeah, and it's like, you have to make it right, and you do. Your work is fantastic. Well, okay, maybe we can take a look at some of your work then, Beau. And this is one of your pieces, and it's absolutely fantastic, I think. Tell me about this one. Is this the Quebec?
Yes, this is in the old city of Quebec. And in the distance there is a funicular that goes up and down, the mountainside. And these are Christmas shoppers who are wandering around a light snow road, and the thing that interested me about this painting was the difference in values. The mood here and the atmosphere is this very, understandable that it'd be a little darker, maybe near sunset, and the light coming from the windows and everything was what interested me about doing this painting.
I love the lighting in that. I think it's very interesting, and it really sets a mood and a tone for me, and it has it has a softness about it to me that, it reminds you of holiday spirit, but yet there's a peacefulness about it as well, which I think is really very unique. And you told me this was a commissioned piece,
Yes,
right?
this was a commissioned piece that I did for a friend, and it was something I mainly worked from a photograph that he had, and of course with my photographs that I have of Quebec, it gave me the history I needed to understand
Absolutely.
what was happening here.
Can we maybe look at another one? Oh, wow. Now, this is different from the one before. Here you go with your portraiture. All right.
This was something that's relatively new for me. In the last 4 to 5 years, I began doing some portraits, and in order for me to do a portrait, I have to have an interest in the subject.
Absolutely.
It has to be the right lighting and all that. And so in this particular case, it was a friend of my daughter's had posted her photograph on Facebook and was looking at a menu. And I call this painting a la carta.
Okay.
Because she's in an Italian restaurant.
Okay.
And this particular woman is studying the menu.
She is indeed. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And that's probably like, you said it was recent when you started doing the
it's been the last
portraiture.
4 years.
Yeah.
So I started
Great.
doing portraits, and I don't accept portraits on a commission basis unless it's something that I feel like was worthy of my effort. And so I have people approach me and they show me this photograph, and I see that really doesn't have pizzazz. It's got to be the right shallowing and light and all that.
Well, I see that in that picture. That's really very well done too. Well, could we see the last picture, please? And this is the one you told us the story about a little earlier.
Yes, this is the one I was telling you about.
Right.
The history of Texas. Sam Houston is on the lead horse here in the foreground.
Okay.
And he is leading his men across the Buffalo Bayou. And they had torn down Isaac Batterson's house here and built a raft in order to float their equipment over on. And this was instrumental in helping to win the war because they came up with a surprise attack 2 days later.
Oh, wow.
On Santa Ana, and of course it won the Texas independence on that day.
Wow.
So this is all the painting that I created from my mind, and it was
that's impressive.
Not an easy project for me.
No, and I'm just amazed. When I looked at that, I thought that's got to really have a good story, and I'm glad that you were able to share that with us. Well, now, thanks for explaining those to us, and tell us now, Beau, about where we can see your art besides at the Conroe Art League.
I show in the Art League most months in the year, and I'm not a prolific artist, but I do have quite a few paintings that I've done over time, and I would say probably a lot of my paintings take as long as a month to actually paint from beginning to end, whereas some plein air painters will paint a painting in a day. With myself, it's not the case, and so I work until I reach the level of satisfaction. And so sometimes it depends on how much detail is in the painting.
Right.
Trying to achieve.
So if someone wants to look at your work and perhaps purchase some of your work, where's the best place besides coming to the Art League? And we hope you will.
Okay. I have my art on Facebook under a group name of Beau's Art.
Beau's Art.
Beau's, BEAU 'S, Beau's Art. Okay. And in that grouping. I have most of my most of my paintings are shown there. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. So people can look on Facebook and find you there and view all the different kinds of work that you do. And so I'm very impressed with everything we've seen today, Beau. Thank you so much for all of the sharing that you've done.
Thank you, Marilyn, for taking the time and for this interview. Thank you. Appreciate
Just
it.
been great. So at this point, in order to see Beau's art and all the other artists from the Conroe Art League, please visit us at the Cal Art League, and it's 127 Simonson, and we're open every Tuesday through Saturday from 11 until 4. There is hanging art different every month over there. Please come and see it, visit us. We have a wonderful gallery. We call it the Best Little Art Gallery in historic downtown Conroe. And please join us there. And thank you so much for being with us today. Know that we live by our creed at Conroe Art League. It's called Create, Appreciate, and Learn. Thank you so much.